From throwing a chair on the court during an outburst to being accused of assault by his ex-girlfriend, Nick Kyrgios is known for his intense meltdowns. Here are the most controversial and unhinged moments of his career, starting with his memorable 2016 Australian Open run. No, it's not memorable because he made a deep run. In fact, he only played 3 games before getting knocked out in the 3rd round by Thomas Berdych. But it was memorable nonetheless. That's because during the tournament, Kyrgios would throw his racket across the court during his loss, complain about the music, and of course swear a lot throughout the 3 games. But most of all, it went down during his defeat against Berdych, where after losing the first set, he swore excessively and complained toward his box, saying that there wasn't enough vocal encouragement. In the second set, things got worse though, as Kyrgios was about to serve when he stopped and complained to the umpire about the music coming from the neighboring Melbourne cricket ground. He called the court a circus, saying that he'd been distracted. Kyrgios snapped away at everyone from the British chair umpire to the linesman, calling the umpire a terrible referee and walking off court. But at least he had a reason to moan about, right? Because the next entry on the list is Nick Kyrgios unhinged like never before. Imagine getting mad over a towel. No, he wasn't denied a towel either. It was just Kyrgios at his diva queen best. Playing against Kyle Edmund at the 2019 Rogers Cup, the Australian took offense to the towel he'd been given. Honestly, I don't understand him at times. Apparently, Kyrgios refused to use the towel with the tournament branding. Talk about creating a fuss out of absolutely nothing. And he refused to take part in the match until he finally received a new white towel, without the branding, of course. Upon receiving the towel, Kyrgios did say thanks, but it came after he complained about how long it had taken them to find a clean white towel. No pleasing this man. As absurd as that reason was for throwing a tantrum, Nick made matters worse during the 2019 Wimbledon exit, and it was a complete farce. Mostly known for his on-court antics, this time Kyrgios produced an extremely unprofessional moment off-court. He joined a sports commentator Miguel Sebra at the Dog and Fox pub in Wimbledon until 11 p.m. Now, it wouldn't have been an issue in normal circumstances, but he had the small matter of playing a Wimbledon second-round match, that too against no one other than Rafael Nadal the very next morning. He was even caught saying, "Quite an unorthodox preparation for a blockbuster, eh?" Others called him an embarrassment in Australia. The player himself would go on to lose to Rafa in 4 sets. You'd think he'd learn his lesson and reflect on his defeat, right? Nope, the Australian bad boy instead headed for the pub once again to wash away his misery. It seems that Wild Thing may just have an alcohol problem, because how else do you explain the time he demanded beer on court? Again, it wasn't during an ATP 250 or 500 match, which still wouldn't make it okay, but talk about disrespect, because this happened at the French Open. It was quite a game, to be honest, as Nick lost to Kevin Anderson after winning the first set, and he was very frustrated throughout the defeat, smashing 2 rackets in the process, before going on to ask a spectator to give him a beer. When the fan responded in disbelief, "You're kidding," Nick shook his head saying, "I don't think so." At least he didn't get one. But you won't be surprised to know that this wasn't his only controversial incident with a fan, as Kyrgios once blamed his defeat on a hot chick. His words, not mine. It did happen though. The Australian bad boy lost his match against Roger Federer in the 2019 Laver Cup, and later claimed that he lost his concentration during the match because of a hot chick in the crowd, further adding how he was being genuinely honest and how he'd marry her right away. Maybe he didn't know that during the Laver Cup, conversations between the teammates are recorded. Either way though, I don't think having that knowledge would have stopped him anyway. But as controversial as this might be, it pales in comparison to the intense 24 hours Kyrgios experienced at the Italian Open in 2019. One day before his eventual exit from the Italian Open in 2019, Nick gave an extremely controversial and explosive interview admitting how he can't stand the cringeworthy Novak Djokovic. If that wasn't enough, he would go on to lose the match against Casper Ruud and have one of the worst meltdowns in tennis history. Genuinely, no exaggeration. Not only did Kyrgios hurl an actual chair onto the court, he also kicked a bottle and then went off on an expletive-laden rant. I am giving 100% to deal with effing idiots like him. I'm done. I'm effing done. I don't give a F. As you can probably expect, it was directed at the chair. With Kyrgios being made to forfeit a game to go down 2-1 in the decider, later he was issued a fine of $20,000 for completely losing the plot, and as bad as that meltdown was, it's still not Nick's worst meltdown ever, because that happened at the Cincinnati Majors in 2019. Nick's outburst at Fergus Murphy, the chair umpire during the Masters, was as unhinged as you could possibly imagine. It came during his straight set losses to Karen Khachanov, with the player calling the umpire an effing tool and even spitting in his direction. He was fined over $100,000 for that rant, the highest amount of money anyone has ever been charged in tennis history for a single outburst, as ATP listed a breakdown of 8 total fines ranging from $2,500 to well over $16,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct, abuse, and audible obscenity. But it's not the worst moment of Kyrgios' professional career. The worst moment definitely came during the 2015 Montreal Masters, and there's nothing funny about it either. This time, Nick landed himself into hot waters for trash-talking his opponent, Stanislas Wawrinka, where he claimed that his best friend, Thanasi Kokkinakis, had slept with Wawrinka's girlfriend. Then Kyrgios whispered loud enough for the cameras and spectators to say that Stan was sleeping with a teenager. It led to a reported brawl between the two players in the dressing room. Kyrgios was suspended from the tour for almost a month and handed a fine well over $10,000. Unfortunately, there's more. As far as professionalism is concerned, Kyrgios' performance in Shanghai back in 2016 ranks up there as one of the worst displays in a professional match, because the Australian completely stopped playing. Sure, he was frustrated and whatnot, but Nick completely stopped playing and tanked throughout the whole match, claiming later that he didn't care if people come to watch him play or not. Many demanded the ATP to take strict action against him, and he was fined nearly $30,000 for lack of best efforts. However, Nick's biggest controversy came off the court, with his ex-girlfriend accusing him of assault. Kyrgios dated Chiara Passari back in 2020, and their relationship ended late in 2021. Now, their breakup wasn't amicable, with things getting heated during an argument, and the cops were called to stop the matter from getting out of hand. A few months later, Passari accused Kyrgios of hurting her during an altercation. Nick actually ducked a couple of court dates, while Chiara claimed that she turned to alcohol and drugs because of the way Kyrgios had treated her, explaining how he once left her in the middle of nowhere at 4 a.m. without her wallet and purse. Recently, Kyrgios admitted to assaulting her, saying that it happened in a bad moment. That's all I have for Nick Kyrgios' most controversial and unhinged moments.